Howdy folks, hope you're all having a good one, and welcome back to World of Tanks with the mighty Jingles. And yes, that's correct, do not adjust your sets. This is a light tank replay that doesn't feature a Rorix 78. I know, I'm probably violating all kinds of contractual obligations here. But this is not a Rorix 78 in the Chinese Type 62. This is Cool Guy 50. And he's platooned up with... how do you even pronounce that? I'm tempted to call him Dave, but we're going to call him Schmuckst in the American Tier 7 tank destroyer, the T-25/2. Type 62 is a real tank, by the way. It was basically a sort of lightweight version of the Type 59. But while the Type 59 was being developed, I mean, it's a medium tank, it's not particularly heavy, but it was still going to be too heavy to operate effectively in southern China, where there's a lot of mountains and marshes and all that kind of thing. Thus the Type 62 was born. I mean, I say was, it's still in use. Not with the People's Republic of China, but with a lot of other countries. Mostly countries from Southern Asia, Southeast Asia and Africa, like Bangladesh, Cambodia, the Congo, the Sudan, Tanzania, Vietnam. The artist formerly known as Burma, for example. Collectively, there's still around about, well, slightly less than 1,000 of these things in active service around the world. I think it's at about this point, by the way. I mean, we're on Prokhorovka, so every light tank player's favourite map. And it's right now where Cool Guy's just realised he's basically alone over here. Or his platoon is basically alone over here on this flank. There's just him spotting for Schmuckst in the T-25/2. Which, by the way, is not a great tank destroyer. I mean, it's not completely terrible. People make a big deal about the fact that it has a turret, and yes, it has a turret. But the turret's only really useful when you're defending yourself against something that's managed to get in close. And if you're dogfighting with anything in a T-25/2, you're basically buggered, turret or no. The only thing the turret is going to help you with is if you manage to get yourself backed up against something so something can't get around you, and then you can just drag the turret around really, really slowly and get maybe one shot off before you die. The gun is good though. Even though the price it pays for having a turret is that it is not able to equip the more powerful 105mm gun that you see on the non-turreted American tank destroyers, but the selection of two 90mm guns, they are pretty good. Because they're both basically the same gun. Honestly, take a look at the stats. The T-25/2 has a choice of two 90mm guns, the M3 and the T-15E2. I don't know which gun Schmuckst has. Probably the T-15E2, but you can see, I mean, he's hitting these targets, he's just not penetrating all of them, particularly the heavies, because the only difference between the choice of two guns on that tank destroyer is 10mm of penetration on the T-15E2. It has 170 rather than 160. The stats are identical, except for that. I always felt cheated when I was grinding out the T-25/2 and being forced to pay experience and credits in order to mount a gun that's basically exactly the same, except it has 10mm more penetration. Surely that could be explained by just changing ammunition. Why do I need a completely new gun? Because it's basically the same gun. And yet, with that gun, Schmuckst is going to be racking up an absolute cricket score here. Thanks, of course, entirely to the partnership with Cool Guy 50 here, spotting targets for him in the Type 62. You'd think, because it's essentially just the two of them here on this flank, alone against... I'm going to count the enemies in a moment, but there's a lot of them. You'd think that the enemy tanks could tell just by the volume of fire, or the lack of it coming their way, that there's only one gun firing at them over here. And they could have rolled this flank up so easily, but of course they haven't, because they don't like getting shot at. I mean, sure, nobody likes being shot at, unless there's something wrong with them. It's a very, very unpleasant experience, but they'd be getting shot at a lot less if they just put their man pants on and move up this flank. But they're not. In fact, at the beginning, quite a few of them weren't even bothering to try to take cover in the bushes. There's more than a few have been nailed in the open down there. And sure, it's not just Schmuckst shooting at them. There's a bit of cross-map fire that came in from the M10 RBFN. He did get himself one kill just now from over at the back of the map there behind the artillery. He's now moving up, trying to get some more shots. Unfortunately, he's picked a really bad moment in which to do it, because as he moves across the open, he's just gotten himself spotted, possibly by a VK, over there on the road, and that's not... yeah, he's dead. Okay. I said I was going to try to count the number of enemy tanks down there, but there's so many of them, all clustered so tightly together, and all dying in basically the same spot, that it's really tough to get an accurate count. But there must be at least 8 of them. And they're all being held back by one T-25/2. He's just gotten himself another kill. And Cool Guy in the Type 62 spotting for him. Look at Cool Guy's spotting damage. That's more than 4,000. He hasn't fired a single shot. Don't worry, he's going to. But the time is not yet right. Oh, this is an encounter battle, by the way, in case it wasn't obvious. The village next to the train tracks is, of course, the capture circle, and there are enemy tanks in the capture circle. In fact, there have been enemy tanks in the capture circle for most of the game. That, of course, is where most of the team's casualties have occurred, and there have been a lot of them. Mostly because nobody bothered to take the hill. So all of the friendly tanks attempting to defend that cap were getting sniped by enemy tanks on the hill. There can't have been that many enemy tanks on the hill though, because most of them are over here. Or they were. Now most of them are dead. But the steady stream of casualties that the team have suffered have at least prevented the enemy team from capping this far. But the team are running out of tanks to throw at the enemy in order to prevent them from winning by capping. So it's at this point, now that it's reasonably safe to do so, that Cool Guy decides he needs to nail that Crusader and start making the move. Because aside from them, there's basically nobody left except for the ELC and the artillery to prevent the enemy team from winning by capping. So with this flank secure, well, you're going to need to deal with this guy first. Unfortunately, his gun was pointing this way, but that's the only shot he's going to get. Cool Guy took some hammer rack damage there, uses the repair kit, keeps going, kills the enemy heavy, avoids getting hit by artillery. This is going to be dangerous though. The ELC's moving up. Artillery manages to get a good shot in there. Unfortunately, the ELC is down, there's just the 3 of them left. Even more unfortunately, there's a setter on the artillery, and there's very little that Cool Guy can do about that without exposing himself and getting killed. There's a Type 58 there, who unfortunately does get a hit in. Backs off into lower ground. Tries to go for the turret snipe. Doesn't quite work. Smux is trying to deal with a setter. Cool Guy gets himself splashed by artillery, uses the medkit to remove the stun. Friendly artillery's dead. It's 2 against 5. And then Schmux takes out the setter. That's going to be great news. There are now 4 remaining enemies. And with the exception of the artillery, all of them are inside that cap circle. Cool Guy needs to spot them, and Smux needs to get himself in a position where he can shoot them. And he's probably going to have to trade some health here, because Smux basically hasn't taken any damage the entire game, thanks to the partnership between himself and Cool Guy in the Type 62. The enemy team are going to win in the next 10 seconds unless Cool Guy gets into that cap circle, and that is exactly as dangerous as it sounds. But it has to be done, and he gets in there with 6 seconds to go before the enemy team wins. Smux is now getting shot at and trading his health with the enemy tanks. There's now 1 less, there goes the T-34. There's the Type 58, doesn't quite get that shot off, and there's the Stug. Fortunately for Schmux, none of these guys have huge alpha damage guns, so he can afford to trade some health. He's nailed the Type 58, and also has the attention of the Stug, allowing Cool Guy to get around behind him and finish him off. That just leaves the enemy artillery. Now they could win by capping. And this isn't really a no-cap kill-all moment. I mean, technically it is. But it's just artillery. And you've got a light tank. And the tank destroyer. And you've got a pretty good idea of exactly where that artillery is going to be. I mean, he was always going to be down this end of the map. Yep, sure enough, there he is. Cool Guy takes 1 shot and then just circles him, baits him into turning around, allows Schmux to take the kill for the Radley Walters medal, and that's 10 kills between the two of them with more than 4,000 spot and damage and nearly 1,500 damage of his own For Cool Guy 50 in the Chinese Tier 7 light tank, the Type 62, and Schmuckst in the American Tier 7 turreted tank destroyer, the T-25/2. Unsurprisingly, the two of them are both top of the team, with Cool Guy himself in the top spot, because as a scout you earn 50% of the XP and credits earned by everybody doing the actual damage to the targets that you're spotting. And funnily enough, the amount of damage that Schmuckst did is almost exactly the same amount of spotting damage that Cool Guy earned. That right there is the mark of a great partnership between a scout and his tank destroyer. Cool Guy 50 in the Type 62, and Schmuckst, or however the hell you pronounce that name, in the T-25/2. Hopefully you all enjoyed today's video, and even more hopefully, any budding light tank drivers out there have been inspired to try to do the same. Just make sure you get yourself a good partner, and you end up on Prokhorovka. And the enemy team are complete idiots, although slightly more intelligent than the rest of your team. Yeah, okay, that's a very unlikely combination of circumstances. But hey, every once in a while, you end up with a result like this. Take care, folks. I'll catch you next time.